not, oh, there we go. All right, so it is 5:10 on Monday, March 24th, and I'd like to go ahead and call the Parks and Rec Board meeting to order. And I don't know if we have anybody out there, but welcome to the meeting. I know that we don't have anybody set up for public comment, so we're going to go ahead and start with our moment of silence, and then we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance and salute the flag. All right, do we have a flag in here? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. All right, thank you, whoever wrote the salute to the New Mexico flag on there for us. That's helpful. All right, so first order of business is approval of the minutes from the March 29th meeting. We did have a canceled meeting in the interim.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Meetings are approved, minutes are approved. You need this copy?
Yes, sir.
I'll trade it. Here.
Here.
We can go ahead and leave it on.
So I don't know if it heard that second or not.
You have to touch.
Okay.
There's like a little pause you have to give on the. Everett, we're sharing this with you. Just a little bit, so.
I don't mind.
I'll try not to talk over you. As long as you promise to do the same.
Agreed, sir.
All right, first order of business is taken care of. All right, so moving on, let's see. We do not have any public comment tonight.
Chairman, I would like to mention that we do have Mr. Townsend here.
Okay.
And he has a subject that we would like to review during the director's report at the end of the meeting.
Okay, great. Welcome. Glad to have you. All right, so let's see. We do need to welcome new members. We do have a new member on our board today, and I'm sorry, Sonny, I'm not going to be able to share your last name. What's your last name?
I'm Sunny Hirschfeld, and thank you very much. I look forward to serving with all of you.
All right.
Thank you,
Welcome, Sonny.
And do we have somebody else who's?
It was Logan Flaherty. I don't know if we had any, I know he was sent out the notification, but I'm not sure. I didn't have any communication with him about tonight's meeting, so.
Okay. All right. Well, we're sure glad to have you. We've been
Thank
kind
you.
of shorthanded for a long time, which means at I think we've been able to have a quorum just about every meeting, but we've been lucky at times. And I get phone calls when I'm like running a little behind to,
Happy to be here.
because they're unsure if we were going to have a quorum. All right. So update on Grindstone master plan. Do we?
So, as you recall, the master plan was presented just as a review during the April council meeting. The goal was to incorporate the comments from the council, and we had one comment, and it actually happened to be, I believe, from Trevor. Those notes are being, again, added to the plan up and with some updates. I need to revisit with the Groundwork Studios to make sure that that has been completed. We submitted him all the notes a couple weeks ago. But the goal from this point would be to submit the master plan with those amendments to the council for possible adoption during the June 8th council meeting.
Do we have some details of the amendments?
So one of the recommendations was moving the parking booth from its present location down to the intersection of Wiggins Way and Resort Drive. And the council had concerns of it backing up traffic on Resort Drive. And so they wanted that to be either rethought or removed. And so I submitted them a request to remove that plan and leave it the way it currently is. It's actually worked pretty well the way it's currently situated.
What was the primary goal of moving it? Like, why was that initially?
To attain some additional parking in that area.
Okay.
And so.
So we have a loss of, what was the potential of like 10 to 15, how many parking spaces?
Yeah, it was somewhere around in there. I don't have the exact number, but I think it's not as vital as the planner had anticipated that parking. We're parking more vehicles up in the campground than the 300 vehicle capacity. We're already meeting that. So we wouldn't be missing out by not making that change. And we have some recommendations in the existing plan to create some expanded parking already in the campground. And so I think between the current parking capacity with this recommended expansion, have more than enough parking for what we need based on that 300 vehicle capacity.
And can you refresh me, why do we have the 300 vehicle capacity? Is that what COVID restrictions are requiring?
No, it's through the Parks and Recreation Department and the Village of Ruidoso administrations, through our historical use from the last 2 years. That's a
So it's
number that we
projected?
are comfortable with.
Oh.
We really don't want to have a capacity beyond that, because then it leads to customer dissatisfaction, overuse, and so that number really has worked out for us. We can accommodate all of that parking on site. And again, you're still able to enjoy the lake with that number. Of course, the specific number of people does fluctuate depending on the number of people in the vehicles, but that turned out to be a really good number for us to work with.
Good.
The other recommendation was, so I believe your comments were to move up the expansion of that parking that I'm talking about in the campground, to move that up in priority. And so
For direct trailhead use is what?
So yes, for direct trailhead use, absolutely. And so it will be moved up in priority based on your recommendation. The one thing that was noted also based on your recommendation, you wanted them to take a second look at using sunrise. And they were just adamant that that's not something that they're interested in. They've already hashed that out, and it was overwhelmingly not supported by the community, and so they will not pursue that. They've already made a decision. And really, those are all of the changes that we're looking at to that master plan.
Do we have a record of the community comment on that, public comment?
I'm sure it does in the council meeting. I can't recall which council meeting, but it was discussed in a council meeting.
I'd like to find more information about that.
Or at least see.
I mean, because do you know where we're talking about this Sunrise Court?
Yeah.
Yes, it's,
Because that's like the top access to the campground area, correct?
yeah.
Or what could have been a top access to that area.
All right.
Do you have any other questions on the master plan? And I would like to mention, I believe, Sonny, that they did provide you with a copy of the draft master plan.
Yep. okay.
It's a pretty substantial document.
Yes.
Again, if there are any questions, I'd be willing to answer them. If not, we can move on to the next item at your discretion.
Yeah, I don't think I have any, I
Yeah.
did take, I believe that I sent both the comment and, I took some notes on I don't know, I thought I sent those forward too. I don't know if I did, but I took some notes just on the master plan and some thoughts that I had, but none of them were, the only things that I really felt like needed to be commented or included in the village meeting I sent for a comment to them. All right, is this, when we were, the director's report is when you were gonna have, Mr. There's a comment. All right, the fiscal year 21 projects?
So I have presented you with a list of projects that were funded in April. The goal was to get the majority of these completed in the current fiscal year. And so the projects and the funding for each of these was approved out of various funds from the village. And I'll review them line item by line item, and I can entertain questions after each of them. On the Eagle Creek Sports Complex, in order to maximize the parking, because we're expecting expanded use in summer and in winter, we proposed a project to pave about a little over half of the parking lot and stripe it to maximize and create efficiency in the parking, because it doesn't have any at all right now. People just park however they wish because it's a gravel parking lot with no parking stops. And so that project was funded for $400,000. That does include some site prep, paving, striping for parking, and placement of some parking blocks along the edges of each field, as well as the design of some watershed components to catch the water off of the parking lot. We have a quote and a purchase order in place for a CES vendor, which is a state purchasing cooperative vendor, to do the paving. We're in the process of finalizing a schedule right now to have that paving potentially completed within the next 3 to 4 weeks. Do you have any questions regarding that project?
How many sites total, or how many parking spots total is it gonna provide us?
It'll be around 200 parking spaces, but that's just on the paved area.
Okay.
So during the summer, I mentioned that's only to pave about a little over half of the gravel parking lot. The other half of it, matter of fact, further on in your packet, there's a conceptual plan, a draft of a conceptual plan for the Eagle Creek Sports Complex, and it shows the area in black that is going to be paved.
Okay.
Actually, I take that back.
Yeah, only half.
Only half of that is going to be paved. Behind the center field will be the stopping point, because that's the area where where the winter park makes snow, and if it had asphalt, it would just speed up the melting of the snow. So that area is going to remain gravel, and that's the area where I'm talking, there's an additional, I'm not even sure, 70 to 100 spaces in that area.
Okay. So yeah, it goes just past the concession
Oh, yeah.
building.
This conceptual plan does mention that there's 291 parking spaces. But that does include the gravel area. Are there any additional questions regarding that paving project?
Where's the paving?
Oh, that's,
That concession
yeah.
right here, so
He-
this
there's another
building
one
is
too, I
blue building
forgot.
right here. That's that building right there.
So
it
this
looks-
paving ends right here?
Yeah, it looks like the paving ends, that's what I'm
Okay,
thinking, is it ends
that's-
right about there on that other side of that building. So it would go all the way across the A field and then part of the way onto the B field complex right there, and then that's where the paving would stop. And I can definitely see that, obviously, if you have black asphalt and then snow on top of it, it's just gonna melt right away. Or a lot faster. Are they gonna develop any of that parking area further past there, Rodney, for the drainage issue, or is that not even really a?
So drainage isn't marked on the map because we really haven't started on it. Of course, all the water drains to the north along the river.
Right.
And so at each of those points, at the points, there'll be a water catchment system built on each of those points. And it could be a combination of berms and probably underground catchment systems similar to like a leach field.
Okay.
So we'll divert it underground and then slowly leach it into the ground at that point. And it'll obviously have an overflow system, so if once it reached capacity in a high flow event, it'll just spill over into a catchment system instead of dumping directly into the river or creek.
Yeah, the creek, anyway. A Ruidoso River.
Eagle Creek.
So no, I mean, I guess what I'm asking, is there gonna be any further infrastructure improvement past the asphalt paved area on the parking? Is there anything else happening on that side, or are they just gonna kind of leave it as is?
We're getting a little off subject. I'll go ahead and address that, but
Thank you.
as far as paving, no. On the conceptual plan map that you have, you can see that there, for summer tubing, there's the run is drawn on the map, but that's seasonal.
Okay.
It's only during the summer. For the summer tubing, of course, that's the route for the winter tubing anyway, so.
Does the quote include any engineering of the site?
Did the
And
quote?
how- Yeah, and how much dirt work is gonna be done in advance? Is it just basically just paving over what's there?
No. The quote does include, it's not engineering, but it is all of the site prep in order to prepare for the paving.
That answers my questions.
In the overall design that was originally submitted for development of this area, did it include this paving part as a part of it?
It didn't include paving as a part of it, but it was a concession of not removing one of the fields. And so initially, it was presented to remove the field to provide additional parking. But again, it was overwhelmingly not accepted by the community very well. And so if we're not going to provide additional area for parking, our only option was to develop some sort of structured parking system. And
It's kind of meeting the obligation of the lease agreement?
no, it's not meeting the obligation of the lease agreement. It's meeting the obligation of retaining those fields for the community. Because if we don't use a field for parking, we have to provide parking for the expanded use. It's not really tied to the leases. I mean, we could have provided parking on the field. But again, it was driven by the community. And again, you can park that gravel parking lot with attendants, but to me, that's inefficient. I'm having to pay an employee to staff that parking, during the entire time, whether it's a tournament or just weekend use. And whenever you could not simply, it's costly, but you could pave it and stripe it, and now you have a structured system.
No, I like the idea of paving it. I really do. I mean, I thought it was something that we should probably do right away. I mean,
There's a
I was
few
hoping
other.
that it was something we could do soon, and it sounds like we're doing it soon. Who wrote up the bid documents for is that something does the village have somebody who writes up the specifications for bid?
A lot of projects, especially if you go through like a CES contractor, it's kind of like a design build. I don't necessarily know all the specs, but you meet on site with the contractor. You review all of the requirements, what you're looking at, and it's basically like a design build. And there's not really, on this level of just paving a parking lot, there's not really any engineering requirements.
Do they provide warranty? Like, what kind of warranty do you end up with?
I'm not sure what the warranty on the job is. Of course, all the CESs it's warranted through that purchasing
CES
cooperative,
purchasing.
yes.
It's a pretty big project.
It is a big project.
Well, I think it's going to,
It's
if
increasing.
it all works out right, it's going to really improve that area.
I mean, that's a guaranteed 291 parking spots in that area. So I don't think I have any further questions about that.
It's a lot of blacktop.
It's a lot.
Be used for, be able to use it for other stuff, right? Paint some pickleball courts on it.
If there aren't any,
That's probably bad. That's probably not an ill-advised joke, but it was a joke.
actually, people might take you seriously.
I know, that's what I'm afraid of.
If there aren't
I've
any
been a
other-
big promoter of real courts, so.
If there aren't any other questions, I'll move on to the Grindstone
Well-
Lake Master Plan recommendations.
So that was yeah, go ahead.
So, based on the draft of the master plan, we felt that these following items were really needed for this summer. And so we requested funding for signage at the lake. We requested funds to put in a concrete boat ramp. And we requested funds to build a stairway from the campground down to the upper level parking lot. And so the total for that, for those projects is $97,000. Staff is currently securing quotes for the signage. We're gonna work with the CES vendor for the concreting of the boat ramp, but we are at the initial stages of submitting requests for permits from the Army Corps for the boat ramp. The Stairway Project is currently underway, and I just received news today that we're looking at a completion date of, I think, June 6th on the stairway. And I'll stand for any questions that y'all may have regarding those projects.
Yeah, I think, I have one question, and it's just kind of a general question. Do we have a village engineer who is able to review any of these projects prior to, as we move forward with them? Is there someone who's on retainer or something that?
No, we don't have a village engineer, but currently what the village does is, from the design, from the initial, even when we receive funding for a project, even sometimes before we receive funding, all these projects go on a capital improvement meeting schedule. And we meet every 2 weeks on every individual project that the village has, and we review the steps every step of the way. And so it includes the village admin, the mayor, the capital projects department for the village, the finance, the purchasing department, all of the department heads. And so it's reviewed on a bi-weekly basis, every project, including the master plans as well.
And that's what is the name of that group?
Let me look, they just sent me a schedule. It's an internal review committee, and it's not even really a committee, it's just staff. And it is, let's see, it's on Thursdays, let's see. It's just a capital projects update is what it's titled.
Okay.
Rodney, what type of material is the staircase going to be made out of from the campground down to the lower area?
They're treated lumber.
Treated
It'll
lumber?
be a stained,
Gravel?
a treated lumber with, it'll land in, the last landing will end in the parking lot. And the upper landing or the upper entrance to the staircase is off the pavement.
Okay. I'm glad we're getting a boat ramp. I walked down there the other day and realized that you needed a serious four-wheel drive vehicle just to get a boat in and out of there. It was pretty crazy. So it's good to see that the boat ramp is going in.
How are we deciding on the terminus and the start of the boat ramp? Like, I mean, with the lake levels varying as much as we have,
The boat ramp is gonna be built, as it was
the lake
laid
was
out
full?
in the master plan.
okay, all right. Oh,
And so if you'll reference it in the master
Yeah.
plan, it's roughly about 50 feet beyond the pump back station, which is that concrete box.
50 feet
50
lakeside to
feet
the
towards
lake?
the lake, as well as above it.
Okay, so that's kind of the midpoint.
It'll
is the-
extend from the high water mark, it'll be roughly 50 feet under or below the high water mark.
And it'll go 50 feet above the high
It'll
water
be 100 feet
Oh, really?
above the high water
mark. Oh,
mark.
okay.
It needs to be there at least.
Any other questions regarding any of those items?
Just touch on signage for me real quick, Rodney, just like usage of the area kind of signage, safe practices, what type of signage are we?
So I'm going to explain what we have been doing in the last couple of years. It's all been temporary signage, laminated papers, more or less. And so we've gotten to a point where we feel our use is pretty consistent, and so we're going to look at a permanent signage. It'll be a digital print on like a plastic surface. And so it's general information, and a lot of it will be seasonal, that we can take up and down depending on the season. It'll have information on a couple different major categories: general lake use with fishing and boating rules, swimming rules, which is, really centered around the summer, hiking, biking trail information. Melissa's putting them together, so she probably knows a little bit. It's
A lot of it's just going to replace existing signage.
replace existing signage, but just
more
with the
permanent.
permanent.
Permanent fixture. Okay. I don't think I have any other questions. You guys?
Pardon me? When are these others going to be completed?
Which
The,
other?
okay, Stairway by June 6th.
The stairways, the plan is June 6th.
Uh-huh.
The concrete boat ramp is yet to be determined because have to get an Army Corps permit.
Uh-huh.
And the signage, even when, once you finalize your order or the text on it, you're
Right.
still looking at 8 to 10 weeks for delivery.
Easy,
For
yeah.
those
And
vinyl
so
signs.
it could quite possibly be the end of the summer by the time we got
And I
that.
have to get them a PO before they'll design it.
So we're still working on that. It's,
Okay, so these things were all requested, this is 21,
yes,
so what, is there any problem then when it goes on over into 21, 22?
no, ma'am, the funding will be carried over to the next fiscal year.
Okay,
And we really did, I personally didn't want to wait on a lot of these because if I have to
No.
wait until July, then it pushes it
oh,
back.
yeah,
Would have pushed it back even 3 months beyond the end of the summer.
okay.
And I try to stay pretty positive when I think I can get it done sooner rather than later, so. If there aren't any other questions, I'll move on to the Alto conceptual plan.
I think I'm okay.
Good.
So the items we requested based on the conceptual plan, I believe the conceptual plan is in your packet. It consisted of a bridge, funding for stream habitat, again, some interpretive signage, picnic tables, a stairway, and a dock. And again, if you can reference your conceptual plan, it's a little small. But those are items that we felt were essential to meeting our goal of converting that sediment pond into a kids fishing pond, as well as taking advantage of the recently acquired building and utilizing that as a concession and restaurant. And again, I'll entertain any questions that y'all may have on any one of the items. And I'd also like to add that the bridge, the stream habitat, and the dock all require, again, Army Corps permitting. It's typically a lengthy process, and they're recently just changing their process. And it's going to be even going to require more time than we're used to. And so those three will probably take an additional 90 days at least from where we are today and to see them completed. We have initiated that permit process, but it's rather lengthy.
What are we referring to as the dock?
So on the conceptual plan,
Yeah.
it's the dock that's depicted is actually right off the edge of the map. And so on the northeast corner of that map, you can see there's a bridge to cross the diversion
Yeah.
channel.
And then
There's a small stairway that gets you down from the service road down to the water's edge. And then there's a dock. And the
Okay.
dock is intended to house a few boats for the rental
I
fleet.
see. That's what I thought it was, but it's just noted. I mean, I can't see the dock.
Right,
part of this
I
as
apologize
ADA
about the
access
map.
Gangway. What is the base course tabletop for excavator? I don't remember that.
That's dealing with the watershed. And what that is
They're gonna put in a permanent pad for any excavation that has to be done out of the duck pond? Is that?
it's just a concept. I'm not sure that it'll ever be completed. But, so this is intended, that area is intended as a sediment pond.
Right.
So anytime they have a large rain event with a lot of silt, it's supposed to deposit that silt in that pond before the water goes into the lake to try to, keep you from having to maintenance a larger lake. And so as this pond fills up with sediment, the intention is for that leveled off area for you to pull up an excavator on it and be able to reach all that sediment in the pond and dredge it easier than it has been done in the past. Again, I'm not sure that, we're trying to incorporate the watershed features into all of our projects.
Yeah.
And so, in working in conjunction with Eric Boyda, that's his department, we try to add these features as we can into, again, all of the projects that we evaluate. And so it's not necessarily a recreation feature, but it is part of the conceptual plan.
And the boardwalk is not, is it gonna be like one of those floating boardwalks like we have had? It's not gonna be a permanent structure, correct?
I would say it's a permanent structure. We're not gonna place it there and remove it.
It's not gonna be like one of those, the floating docks and things that we have at the other, at Grindstone?
Quite possibly. It's just a concept.
Okay.
It hasn't, there's not a design, there's nothing set in place of what we're exactly going to do. I have discussed some options with a dock company, because we have several docks that we've purchased from them and asked them, when we were planning this, if they've done things similar, and it could be like a floating dock.
I just, yeah, floodwater, I would think that if you could remove it in anticipation of potential issues, it might be good. And then the bridge that goes across, is that one of those fiberglass bridges?
Yes,
Or
that is the plan at this point, is to
That would be
put
a
in a,
permanent fixed bridge then?
yes, similar to the ones that are down below the Alto Dam currently.
Rodney,
Yes, ma'am.
if the Army Corps says no, no, no,
Yeah, the Army Corps will decide.
so then what happens to the concept? I mean,
From
is all
what-
of it,
Board.
Yeah, redesigned.
does
So
it,
I have visited with Eric Boyda. You'll probably hear his name a lot in lots of meetings that you attend. He has a very close relationship with the Army Corps. And I would say in all my years here, and I've been here a long time, it's the best relationship the village has had with the Army Corps.
okay, great,
The likelihood of them not permitting it is very, very low.
okay,
It's more of they're trying to keep you in compliance. Instead of you going and build something that's violating their issues, they're trying to catch that at the front end and building your
Okay.
project correctly. They're not really there to say, not to allow us. It's more of a guidance that's going to follow their rules and regulations.
great. And then one more, is that building usable as it is now? Or are we going to have to do a whole bunch of the old post office?
It is usable as it is now. It
Okay.
could potentially need some modification to the kitchen, but I mean, it could be used today. The floor plan wasn't, how do I say, significantly altered when it was a residence. It retained an open floor plan.
Oh, okay,
And so it's actually really, in really good shape to utilize for the purpose that we purchased it for.
super. That's all I have.
Well, that's exciting. I love this plan. I do think it probably makes this lake safer. I mean, I think the Army Corps is gonna like the fact that putting vegetation in up above that pond and helping to drop sediment earlier.
And what a neat concept for the kids to have that youth fishing area that's designated for them, and it's really kind of cool.
Yep,
Everything's still conceptual at this point, so I don't.
You know, including in this conceptual plan, I don't remember, I mean, is there eventually like, and this is getting off track a little too probably, but upgrades to the boat ramp? I mean, we're talking about a dock, and I don't know if that dock is primarily for commercial vessels that we're planning to rent, or if it's for vessels the public would use in accessing their vessels, and if so, I mean, it seems like we would have a follow-up with an improvement of the boat ramp there potentially.
It's intended, to answer one of your questions, the dock is intended for the rental.
The rental, okay. all
It's,
right.
I mean,
That
of
makes
course,
sense.
someone wanted to pull up there, they could. I don't believe that would be an issue, but it's not the intention for people to launch their personal watercraft. If you or this commission would like to recommend pursuing hardening that boat ramp, we can add it to the list. It's,
I don't,
it's not been.
It's not been an issue.
It's not been an issue or something that's been brought up at this point, but,
I don't see a lot of vessels on that lake, really. I mean, I don't know, it's not a lake I visit quite as much as Grindstone, but,
I imagine if it increases, it will become a demand, because it's been a demand at Grindstone.
well, and the water, the bank, I mean, the water there, the mud is pretty hard to navigate. I mean, I think
Well, and
my dogs were.
This
trapped
may
a bunch
be,
of into my vehicle today, so.
that may be a point of contention in the future with Alto as well. I think they're gonna use it as a water source eventually, once they've got some of their
And
current
turbidity is gonna
projects.
become a problem.
I don't believe turbidity will come a problem. I think they're gonna use the water much more often than they are now, and so you're gonna see your lake level fluctuate.
All right.
And so you'll run into the same issue that you're running
Regardless
into at
of-
Grindstone. So I think it will, I think it's a good project to add to a list, honestly, I do. Just because it
I
hasn't been
support
brought
it. I
up,
mean,
we
I
should
think it's,
plan
I do
ahead.
think it's kind of, it makes it almost unusable when it's at certain times, the way that mud is, your vessel gets totally full of mud.
Although the rules and regs do say we're not responsible for, that you're supposed to carry
I
it.
have to clean my own boat.
You have to carry it
Oh.
from the parking lot to the water. That's what the rules and regulations say. We're going above and beyond to take care of you.
It's too bad we can't get some, I don't know.
If there aren't any additional questions, I'll move on to the Midtown
Please,
benches. So, as part of the sidewalk project, we removed, a lot of the benches in the project area just to accommodate the work. Well, the village, the governing body expressed interest in replacing the benches in the Midtown area and upgrading them. They've been in place since the project was completed I think, in the 90s. And so we've budgeted for replacing all of the benches in the Midtown area. We have ordered those and I'm not, you recall the delivery date? We'll be installing them as soon as we receive them. I would imagine it would be another 3, possibly 4 weeks on delivery. The design is in the packet.
No, it's the top.
It's the top one,
The top one.
in black.
It's gonna be hot.
Yeah, but they're gonna last so much
Keep 'em
longer than the
moving.
wood ones that were there too.
Keep them moving.
Okay.
If there aren't any questions about the benches, I'll move on to the White Mountain Master Plan. The White Mountain Master Plan, so we had a cost proposal from years ago whenever we initially sought a planner designer. And so we upgraded, or we updated the scope of work for the master plan to include a rec center and to the evaluation of some newly acquired properties the village purchased. The cost did not change with the scope change. We requested funding from the village. Again, I'm not certain what fund that was funded out of, but they did fund it in full. And so we submitted an approval for that funding, we're awarded it, and we also followed up with a task order to initiate that plan. And so that task order was completed during the May council meeting. And I believe they just received their they will receive their purchase order tomorrow. And so then we'll start planning out the master planning of the White Mountain area. And I'll entertain any questions y'all may have regarding that.
I don't have any questions until I see the
We have
conceptual
a,
plan.
we have a projected, like, completion date of the master plan when we would, or are you putting that into the documents?
It
when
will
you want it?
be, I believe, January of '22. Any other questions? I think that completes the Jasmine's wish list.
Wow, Jasmine, only $800,000 in wish list. Man, Santa's gonna be busy.
I like your presentation you did.
It's okay, we'll. Better stick to the
Next agenda item. So softball, ECSC scheduling.
So that's the Eagle Creek Sports Complex scheduling and
Okay.
softball. And so, I forget, time has flown by, but we did receive, clarification from the state that both adult, leagues and youth leagues were permitted. And so we worked with both of those independent organizations, to first, we acquired acknowledgement that they would follow all of the COVID-safe practices required by the state. And then we proceeded after that point to work with them for scheduling of their leagues. And so the men's adult softball league is currently underway. They've been playing, I think, for about 2 weeks. Little League Baseball is also underway and has been playing, I think, for a week. And so they're both utilizing not only the Eagle Creek Sports Complex, but they're utilizing fields throughout the area. Gavilan when they can, North Park, Ruidoso Downs. I'm not sure, they do have teams, or they're interleague playing with teams from Capitan and Mescalero, but I'm not certain that they've scheduled games in those communities. And then as far as Eagle Creek scheduling, additional scheduling, we also received confirmation from the state that tournaments were also allowed for adults and youth. And so we worked with each of the independent tournament hosts for adult and youth sports. And it wasn't very hard, but we have a full schedule of tournaments as we have in year past, and we've already actually added 2 additional tournaments that we haven't had in the past. So I believe the schedule for the tournaments is included in your packet. And it appears that there's 12 tournaments, but I think it's not correct. There's still an additional, let's see, fast pitch, state.
I count 12, yeah.
There's one more tournament that we're working on. It's like a over 70 or something like that.
How many open weekends do we end up with?
Open weekends?
Not very many.
I'm curious, like, how you guys can turn it over from one tournament to the next, like, especially some of these 4-day tournaments, or.
Not very many. There's like a handful, or 2 handsful, like 6 open weekends. And just as you mentioned, right now we just started with the 5 back-to-back tournaments. And so we had our first last weekend, and then we have 4 more weekends of tournaments. And, just kind of how we turn them around. I mean, we work a lot of overtime, because our staff has their regular duties during the weekdays, work a lot of overtime on weekends. And the biggest impact is to the local leagues. Is she okay?
Okay.
The biggest impact is to the local leagues because of the field availability. You talk about your field availability, it's only available from Monday through Thursday.
Right.
Because Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's taken up by these tournaments.
Is this, tournament fees and stuff, they help cover very much of your overtime that you end up having to?
No. But they are consistent with other communities.
Yeah.
And again, I'd like to share this, and you probably heard me say it again.
Yeah,
It's not the direct fees And really, that's a lot of events. It's not the direct fees where you're getting the benefit. It's the indirect benefit of the hotel rooms and literally the vast numbers coming to town. So traditionally, our Memorial Day weekend will bring in 10,000 people to town. Upwards of almost 200 teams. And so that's where we're really getting the maximum benefit.
Well, and I heard that this tournament was full and typically wasn't, this one you just had.
That's
and that
correct.
there were 13 teams on the waiting list, is what I was told.
That's correct, from what I was told as well.
There's
And
a demand-
traditionally,
There's a demand for it, isn't there?
traditionally, our first two adult softball tournaments are not full. They're usually around the 40 teams, and these ones are both, the first two are both at 65, which is our max.
Now, and I don't want to make this, in the master plan that we're talking about for White Mountain, is there any additional fields potentially going in? And would they even allow play there?
I'm not,
We just talked about the master plan being updated for White Mountain.
right. So I can
Would we
tell
ever be
you,
putting in fields there?
I could tell you what my wish is, but ultimately it's gonna be driven by you, and you, and you, and you, and you. This is what I would like to see. I would like to build the biggest fields possible. So, and I don't mean high school baseball. High school baseball is usually like 350 to 400. And you very seldom see high school baseball teams travel. That's why we only have one high school baseball field. If we could build fields that were 300 feet in distance, we could accommodate adult softball all the way, literally all the way down to T-ball.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to build the largest fields possible. Ultimately, that may only be 250 feet, 200 feet. But again, it's going to be driven by the demand of our community, what they push for. I'm going to be an advocate for building the fields as large as possible just because we can accommodate everybody. I'm going to compare it to North Park. You build one field that is 125 foot, well, it only accommodates 8 and under, and that's it. And so where if I had a field that was at least 200 feet, I could accommodate from 12-year-olds all the way down to. And so that's what I'm an advocate of, is building as big as we can and have it with multiple setups. And so just like out at Eagle Creek, we can accommodate every level of baseball and softball other than high school baseball out at the Eagle Creek Sports Complex. And we have pushed it to that high school level in the past.
Do they ever,
The 90.
do we ever, or does this league ever partner with the Downs in use of those?
All the
fields
time.
in Downs? Yeah, they do.
So the village of Ruidoso, our Parks Department really works with people throughout the county. And right now I'm gonna focus on softball, but we do this typically with all of our programs. For little, youth sports, even adult sports, we work with their Parks Department to try to gain access to their fields, and try to spread the use out, everywhere. We go as far out as Capitan, and we will again this year. Because of the importance for the conditions of the fields and the safety of the fields, not only for these tournaments, but for our local leagues. We work with their Parks Department. We assist them with irrigation improvements, fertilizing of their fields, aerating of their fields, on occasion mowing them. But we work with them all the time because we realize it's not only important to these tournaments, but most importantly, to our kids. Our kids have to use that for league play as well, so we work with them all the time. And then we're kind of a liaison between the different tournament hosts, working with the access to those fields in the Downs, the field in the Downs. But we also do that with Capitan schools as well. And ultimately, I'll tell you this, at the end of the day, because we're using it throughout the summer, it provides, again, a safer and more kind of highly maintenance field, because what happens typically if you let a field sit vacant and no one's on it, you get a lot of weed growth in the infield, the dirt's not being groomed and maintained, the grass isn't being cut, And so by using it more throughout the year, you're actually keeping it in better condition. So that's the other thing that I really like about it. Are there any other questions regarding item number D? If not, I'll move, or,
Pickleball tournament?
so pickleball tournaments and designated courts. So an update on the pickleball tournaments, the independent pickleball group in Ruidoso, have expressed they will not be operating the pickleball tournaments this year. They kind of have lost some momentum and in that area, and also with the uncertainty of things whenever you have to plan so far out. But what I would like to do is, we've recently hired a youth and adult sports coordinator, and I would like her, and we've already had initial conversation with the pickleball group and seeing if the Parks Department can step in and take over tournaments in some aspect, whether it's indoor or an additional outdoor tournament. But I think we need to get a little more involved, because I would hate to see that go away. There was a lot of interest in the past.
Yeah, that is sad.
And as far as designated courts, there's not been any movement towards that goal. But I would expect that they would have some interest in the White Mountain Master Plan.
Yeah. And I'm assuming we're gonna work closely with them to try to set up some tournament. The tournaments that we do set up, we're gonna try to work closely with them on how to manage the tournament.
Absolutely. They're the ones with all the knowledge, so we would definitely work with them, and that's the,
They've shown willingness in the past. I'm assuming that they would be receptive to this.
yes, they have. We had an initial discussion about it, and they're very interested, so.
Okay, good. And would this include like youth tournaments as well as like, I mean, are we talking a broad range of age groups and divisions, or are we? Because in the past, I'm not familiar with like.
I don't know that much.
There were some league that they kind of.
I don't know much
About
about
it.
the demand for each of the divisions and age groups, but we obviously would accommodate any division or age group that there was a demand for.
Right.
I've never.
I don't know
met
what
a
other
youth
communities are
pickleball
doing
player.
right. What?
I can honestly say I've never met.
Oh,
a
the
youth
kids love it
pickleball
at the
player.
middle school.
Do they?
Yeah, they play it in PE. The local club donated some equipment and got them pretty
Got
excited
them
about
fired up about it?
it. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
it's good. I don't know if they participate in a tournament, but they definitely like to play.
Okay.
All right, on to the horses.
So there are
Is that where we're
no,
at?
I do not have any updates on the horses, other than the village submitted a letter to the state, and I don't know that they received any correspondence. I don't believe so.
Have we had any meetings with the schools recently?
We have,
And did it come up in the meeting with the schools?
they had expressed some interest in fencing off the fields. So I had requested, when I heard some grumblings about the horses, I went out and requested a quote on my own. It was roughly about $100,000 to fence off the soccer fields. And I shared that with both the village and the schools. The schools initially expressed some interest, but I haven't heard anything in like 2 months.
Yeah, and I have not, I'm sure they'll be back, but they've gone to higher ground, I guess, for a
Yeah.
while.
I'm sure they'll be back, and I'm sure it's gonna be a
Cycle.
like a winter thing. They go where the grass is greener, and that's where the grass is greener, so,
And you guys do a good job with that grass down there. It's green.
so.
What is the NFF fundraiser?
So it's the National Forest Foundation,
I saw the,
partnership we have, and so I did print a copy of a draft agreement that was presented during the May council meeting. And really, the highlights of it is this foundation has worked out in agreement with the village for every parking pass that we sell at Grindstone, that we submit $1 to this foundation. And the funds that are accumulated are used for improvement projects that are either on U.S. Forest Service land, but they have to be adjacent or on, right next to Ruidoso. So, I mean, we're not paying for projects that are happening in some other district. They have to be immediately on national forests around Ruidoso or on public property in Ruidoso.
Are we restricted to the funds that we develop, or is this a bigger funding source, like?
There is a
we can
potential.
tap into?
There's a potential to tap into other funding sources, and one in particular, which is, that again, y'all may be aware of, is the fund that is collected out from the ski area. It's a similar type fund. From every lift ticket, they donate some of those funds toward a different fund. I don't know the name of it, but you can apply for some of those funds and use it in conjunction with our funding. Or as well, I mean, you could combine it with local funds, Village of Ruidoso funds.
Yeah, well, I was curious if it was just like, so every parking ticket that we sell, we get $1, or $1 is put into this fund. And what I was trying to figure out is if the projects are restricted to those funds collected through that means. But you're saying it could be, we could get access funding that's put into the same kind of fund from the ski area?
Yes.
Is it limited to the Smoky Bear Ranger District, any funds that are received?
I'm not
there,
sure how
or
that
is it
fund
like a
works.
bigger national fund that this all goes into?
This is our fund, has to be used, this fund has to be used on U.S. Forest Service property or adjacent public land immediately around Ruidoso. The other fund from the forest, from the ski area, I don't know how that works or what the restrictions are. The other intention of this program, so we were the initial partner in this program. Before COVID happened, the plan was to go out to other businesses in the community and try to get them to partner with some similar type of donation. And so an example would be if we could work with a company that sells golf discs. So for example, for every disc he sold, he could give $1 to this foundation. And then we could go to a mountain bike company, and maybe for every bike they sold or every bike they rented, they could contribute. And then we could go to the OHV store, and every thing that they rented, they could contribute. And so it wouldn't just be the $1 from our program, it would be multiple businesses contributing. Yes, from outdoor recreation. And there are a lot of businesses currently, and I believe that we'll continue to see a lot more businesses. But that's the goal, is to build upon this. And just like a point of reference, I believe since the inception of us donating to this, the village has donated over $38,000. And so if we have the ability to attract multiple businesses, and that includes restaurants, lodging, I mean, there's a lot of people impacted by the outdoor recreation. So that's the goal. And we'll get back on track with this foundation to start publicizing what we have accomplished and where we would like to be.
Now, is the Parks Department then going to be the entity that helps determine what projects are approved and move forward with, or is there going to be a separate entity?
So there is a committee that's put together, and right now it's really revolving around the foundation, the Forest Service, and the Village of Ruidoso, because those are the key partners right now. There really aren't any other partners. But as other partners come aboard, so we would include people from those individual businesses that decide to
There'll
join.
almost be a separate board almost for this.
Yes, this is, there is a committee
yeah.
that does select the projects. And it's partners that are in the foundation.
Does it say somewhere in here, I'm missing it, what projects are eligible?
The criteria, I actually forgot to attach the criteria, but it's, again, in short, it's projects that are going to benefit the outdoor recreation in the immediate area, and that could be a lot. I mean, it could be watershed, it could be interpretive signs, it could be signage for trails, bathrooms, trailheads. I mean, the potential list goes on and on, but anything that would have a benefit to outdoor recreation in the area, basically.
Yeah, I've always wondered, I mean, there seems to be like a need for a bathroom at Cedar Creek. And
That could potentially be a
that's not in the
project.
camp, you know, because the picnic area's been closed, like, and it's closed a lot. Which creates kind of a problem for, we get lots of visitors there. I mean, it's an issue. I don't know if Alsep's thinks, what they do. Who, is Mary Mitzo's local? Who is that?
No, I believe
That's a part of the National Foundation.
they're part of the Forest Foundation,
Yeah, okay.
and no, they're not local. I think they're out of Colorado. No,
Looks like
this
its
is
address is in
Montana.
Montana.
Yeah, it says Montana.
And
Our rep,
Rebecca Davidson is.
she's the one that's out of Colorado.
Colorado, okay.
And she's the direct contact for this
For,
program?
yes. And I just wanted,
Program.
so we presented this during the May council meeting for renewal. And the council decided to not only renew it, but renew it for 3 additional years.
Good.
And, yeah, that's what the change was.
And
to
they said,
renew it.
apparently you said 38,000 additional dollars they put toward.
38,000 is what we have
That's
put
what
into
we
it at
put-
this point.
Oh, I see.
But we do
What
have,
happens to that money in the interim? Do they have a invested? What do they do with it?
I'm not sure. You'd have to speak with them.
Do we get a percentage on it?
Hopefully we get it all.
I hope we get some kind of percentage on it. That's a lot of money just.
We
sit there.
we don't get like a percentage of it,
Well, but I
but
mean, if it, does it grow? I mean, we.
I'm not sure. You think they would, but I don't know that answer. They get a percentage of it for admin fees.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what the percentage is in here, but ultimately, the goal is to get the money back on the ground in
Right.
Ruidoso. That's the whole point of the project, whether it's on Forest Service or Village. So one project, and I believe I've mentioned it in the past, the only project that has been selected at this point is the trailhead in Mud Canyon. And so, unfortunately, through COVID, they had some setbacks and it hasn't been completed. But that project alone, if we were to get it, when we finally get it completed through this, that's huge. That's a huge project for the community.
Where is that?
It's, you know where Rainbow Lake RV Park is?
Yep.
On Cedar Creek, on Carrizo Canyon.
Uh-huh.
So right behind that, there's Forest Service property, and they're building a trailhead there, which would provide additional access to the Grindstone Trail
Okay.
system.
And it's called Mud Canyon?
Yes,
Okay.
it's got some other names too, I think.
Yeah.
Sawmill.
Yeah, sawmill.
Sawmill, yeah. So this is just informational for us?
Yes.
Is this National Forest Foundation something that can accept larger donations rather than the small, rather than the $1 or the $5 type?
Absolutely. They can take one-time donations, they can take larger donations. This is just one example. That's all I want to say. I want to say something else.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
That's all I want to say.
Come on. All right, so I guess that brings us to the director's report, which I think we've had a lot of reporting, but.
Oh, yes. So what I would like to do is, this weekend is a kickoff for really the summer for us. The Grindstone Lake and the Whibbit and the pool and all that's going to kick off. But I have a project that was brought up today from Mr. Townsend. He's here at the meeting, and I would like to give him an opportunity to present a proposal that he has for the Parks Department.
Great.
And I'll turn it over to Mr. Townsend. You can use the mic up at the,
Are
yes,
you-
sir.
Are you related, are you of the Townsends that were at the Gavilan Stables and,
We were Grindstone Stables.
yeah, that's what I meant.
James Townsend was my dad.
Yeah, okay, all right.
He passed away about a year ago.
Yeah, I,
So I've been in California for 10 years and now I'm back. So we're going to get some of the business up and running again, different stuff anyways.
Susie's still around here?
What's that?
Is your mother Susie?
Yes. So some of the maps are accurate. You can pass some of them around.
You can,
I'll explain some more later.
you can skip me.
Yeah.
You can skip.
Yeah,
You know what you're talking about. You've been over there.
I've seen it.
That's pretty accurate. This was an original proposed trail. This is the second proposed trail. Okay? Let me pass it to her.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're looking at?
Yeah, I do. This is
Okay.
access.
You know what, Jesse, I'll go ahead and add a little bit more to it, just because Jesse, as you may know, Sonny, where the Townsend property is, it's right next to our Parks and Recreation office. So he's moving forward with a recreation plan for his property.
Oh,
And so this would be an addition to his plan, or to his plan of operation. And then he already has the approval to move forward with his concept on his property. This is an additional idea that he's come up with that he wants us to review or consider.
So the initial concept plans, we're gonna have outdoor recreation for families, especially younger children. We're gonna have bouncy house, petting zoo, slides, just anything that's outdoors and fun. I'm gonna have hay full tractor rides on the property. So what this would be an extension of that. There's an access route that is on city property from my property line to the southeast corner of the lake. There's like a 30-foot gravel road in there. And then also below the water treatment plant, there's another road that needs a little bit of maintenance on it, but follows the south and west side of what's also considered the Dam 9 hole for the Frisbee Golf Course. So there is already an established route through there. So what I would like to do is be able to offer tractor rides to both locations and have a trailer that's large enough that families can ride on it, but they can also bring ice chests and tents and any other stuff that they would like to take to the lake. I've got a large enough area where I can easily accommodate over 100 vehicles. So I think what would work is I would let them park on my property and then charge a fee to transport them from my property to the lake. And I think that ride would take about 15 minutes. Typically, I don't think I'm sure people would probably want to be able to ride both directions, but it's a pretty good pull uphill. And I think once you drop them off, they could walk back to their vehicles at their own time. But we would offer times that would match. Typically I think it's gonna be like a 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. kind of event. I think a fair fee on that for both parties is 10% of gross on what the tractor rides generate. I think it also probably needs a solar gate that would need to be located close to the water department access route there. And in lieu of the cost, that's about a $2,000 cost, we're gonna put a solar gate in there. And in lieu of the 10% for the initial fee until we get up to whatever the cost of the gate installation was, I think would be a fair trade for both parties. If you guys have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So using the road, using Resort Drive itself for shuttling is,
No, I wouldn't use Resort Drive at all. Not allowed. We'll start down at 525 Resort, where my property is, but we won't be on any of the pavement. That way it doesn't affect any of the traffic or travel lanes.
well, obviously I have concerns about trafficking people right through the center of the course, through the disc golf course there, because if there is play or anything happening there on the course, flying frisbees, people riding in the backs of
In which
the
area?
trail.
Sorry, just having a hard time.
This would be on the Revenge, on the, what you would call the Revenge 9, or the back, part of the back 27 holes of the disc golf course. I saw on your
The
proposed.
primary road between the memorial and your property, that road crosses the course.
So this isn't the road that I was concerned
This is,
about.
this is the road, isn't it?
Yeah, so this
That's what I'm
one,
talking about.
yeah, so, no, this one's, yeah, let's see. So this. So this is the road where the Resort Drive is right over here.
Right.
Yeah.
So this one, this isn't a concern coming through here at all, but once he turns off of this road, because this is kind of where our parking area is.
Well, and there needs to be a change here. This was the
Yeah,
original
this is
proposed
an
line.
old map for sure, because this is where the parking area is.
Right.
For the course right here.
The new trail, I talked to Rodney and Tim this morning, and then we recommended we changed, and we want to do this where it completely avoids the back nine.
Yeah, I think that's fine by me, because we can modify a couple of these last couple holes here.
Well, and I have a
Move
map
those out of
right
your
here.
way.
I don't think it impacts any of these holes.
Jesse,
Right.
he's the guru. So if he says it impacts him, he's gonna
Well,
know more than anyone else.
Well, we're
Well,
just
we-
looking
I
at the
really-
map, because this goes right along that fence line.
Right, and that's not too steep for your buggies to,
I don't think
Go
so.
up, no.
Four-wheel drive tractor?
yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, just fine, just
And I've
cruise
got
right
the
up.
equipment to maintain it if it does need to be maintained. It is washed a little bit, should be maintained anyways.
Yeah, I walked down the other day, it was pretty chopped out. And then you would go where? You would go right up against the dam?
Yeah, so right up against this fence line right here, and then you get, I don't know if there's a fence line along the dam now?
There is a 6 foot off of the dam chain link fence that goes,
And just stay right along the fence line.
it just stays
Most
right along the
places.
fence line. So we would have to move holes 25
How far is this
and
distance?
27. Oh, the fairway plays almost directly against the fence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we would definitely have to move several of the disc golf holes, but,
Do you think a tractor ride through there once an hour or twice an hour would impact?
I think it's something that I'm not saying that it's out of the question. I'm just saying that it's something that we would definitely have to alter some of that course. We would have to, but that side, honestly, that side of the disc golf course, it needs new signage anyway, and it could use some updating to make it a little bit more playable. So.
Before we spend too much time on the details, do you have any additional things that you need to,
Yeah, sorry.
have you told us what your plan is, or what it is that you want to do? I mean, is that, are you
That's
done?
it.
They're done?
Yeah, it would be in conjunction with my family outdoor park.
Right, so you guys would have your deal set up
Yep.
out over here, and you guys would have 100, from what I understood, you said you'd have 100 extra parking locations. You would then be offering shuttle rides, basically a shuttle ride, buggy type situation from here up into the lake area
Yeah,
for
then
access
go to the
there.
Wivet side for families that want to do Wivet, and then we can try to figure out what times work best. We can access the south side of the lake for people that don't want to have anything to do with the Wivet.
Sure,
Wanna go
fishing, hanging out.
Walking, but it just saves them this, I don't know what that distance is. It's
a
about a
ways.
quarter of a mile from my fence to the lake, but by the time you add it, you're probably looking at maybe a half.
Yeah.
But that's a steep climb.
Totally.
And especially if you're lugging a kid or an ice chest.
Because I fish over here all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what else is happening in your property right here that you were kind of looking for approval for today, or recommendations to proceed
Nothing.
forward? That's it?
Yeah, we're already
It's just the shuttling?
Just to show us.
That's
no
what we're
living.
looking for?
Yep. I'm on the June 1st agenda for conditional use permit for mobile food service.
That's exciting.
So, in conjunction with all that stuff, I know they've got food at the lake house, dam house, whatever we're calling it.
but there could also be, there's also gonna be, nobody's, not sure why it would get rejected now, but that's about the only thing that's temporary. So those are the last two things that I wanted to add. And we have enough acreage here on the 5 acres that I could do about a 10 or 15 minute hay wagon ride on my property, that we're most likely gonna do anyways. And while I have the equipment and the ability, I thought, well, if it works, we'll add it all the way to the lake.
Okay.
How would you advertise it? How will people know that they can ride up instead of having to
The
trudge
people
around
that
and?
park on my property without asking, is if that's any sign of how easy it's gonna take off, it won't take them long, and they'll know.
It won't take care of itself.
Yeah, that was an issue with it.
Jesse, I have a couple of questions. What would that do in terms of our capacity that we
Yeah.
have at the lake? We've set this capacity of 300 vehicles. So if you're bringing in an additional 100 vehicles.
I expect about 50 to 75 vehicles for my enterprise, and I expect about between 25 and 50 vehicles that would probably also wanna go to the lake. So whatever, I mean, if you're, maybe to add 100 total people to the lake activities on any full day.
Vehicles, right? And then
Well,
depending
people,
on how many are in.
I think the vehicles would be between 25 and 50 vehicles.
Oh, okay, 25 and 50 vehicles. And then is this a one-way ticket, so they're just getting right there and then they?
I think it would work out well that it probably would be a one-way ticket, but then it would, because it's downhill. I mean, I've experimented where people have parked and walked up there anyways, and the downhill walk, I don't think is gonna bother people that much, but I would probably only charge them for one way, and if they were there when I got there, I'd be happy to pick them up for free and bring them back.
Because if it's me hauling back 300 kids after being on the Rivet and I-10 and an ice chest, I'm gonna want to ride.
Well, if you see me, get on.
The,
You know, the other thing I would like to add too, Jesse,
I
is,
got a
is
lot
that,
with this.
if you don't provide transportation back, from my experience, they're gonna be walking everywhere you don't want them to. And what that's gonna cause is interference in the disc golf, because they literally, we dealt with this before, whenever they walked back on their own, they just walking in the street.
Yeah, there was no
Walking through the
trail, there was
middle of
no, yeah.
The benefit would be that you just took them up a path, hopefully they would follow that path
Yeah.
back. I think it would be very important if this was added to adequate signage, because you can't have them wandering through the disc golf course, and you most definitely cannot have them walking in the right of way or in the road. It will get so much negative feedback that,
I don't think
and
we're,
it's a safety issue.
yeah, I think there's a lot of considerations that have to be kind of worked out on this before.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few.
I mean,
working on
one of
this.
my immediate things is, and this is village property we're moving through, correct?
Yes.
And this almost has to be a bid procedure if you're going to be allowing, basically you're providing transportation through the village property. And, I mean, what's gonna stop what if I wanna start something and I pick people up and I wanna drive that same route?
Well, you have
How
to
many-
own my property, and from what I know from talking to everybody else in the village is they're not allowing commercial rides on, paved roads, on city streets.
Hey, Jesse, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
let me hear the rest of your concerns, and then I'll try to address it.
Okay.
Just because I may have some.
Yeah, that was, that's one of my first ones. So to get to this drive to the village property, you have to come across your property?
Correct.
Right.
Unless you drove to the Frisbee Golf parking lot, and then can you still,
So to answer your first question, what we can do, and this is a simple process, we can submit a request for proposal or a formal request for quotes. Not really a big issue. We can give everyone the equal
opportunity
opportunity.
to-
So I believe we can address that with no concerns. And I just wanted to mention that.
and turnaround areas, are those like, do those exist? Would you use the parking lot for turnaround area at the lake?
That one needs to be explored a little bit more. Tim and I talked about it this morning. I don't remember exactly what that looks like. I probably wouldn't go all the way into the lake parking area. You could probably turn around. I think there's a wide enough area where you could turn a tractor around without actually having to get into the lake parking lot area.
Because if you look,
And it accesses, it comes out right there where the trailer parking.
yeah, where the boat
where the
trailer
boat
parking would be.
parking is.
And then on the other side, there's,
So he's proposing it come out right
On the other side,
here,
that's
so
like a
following
30
the dam
foot.
up, and then this is where he's talking about being able to turn around, which would be right at the entrance of the boat ramp, the turnstile and pump station, and then the trailer parking. So this is where he would enter up and into this facility. So you'd just be dropping them off, basically, right there by the boat dock, or by the entrance to the boat dock.
and the Kennedys though, are they lease your property? What was that?
They've purchased what was the Grindstone stables.
So they would have access down to that road. They would actually, is that right?
No,
No?
if we're creating an agreement with Jesse, then Jesse would
Well,
have
but
access.
if there's a request for proposals, they could submit a proposal.
Yes, they could, but I mean, the access is only going to be granted to whoever would have the agreement ultimately. I mean, other than the public using it. But for commercial purposes, it would be the individual with the agreement.
And maybe so you understand a little bit more, that driveway goes on my property, that's an agreement from the village and my dad from like 2007. And then we have an agreement with the Kennedys also where it's kind of a partnership, how about that word? A partnership easement.
An easement, yeah, okay. What is our goal today?
I'm sorry?
What is our goal today, besides
this proposal?
find getting information?
You know, I realize it's a, kind of not an agenda item. If you had the ability to make a recommendation, one way or the other, if it's, hey, I need to see this, or I need to see that, it would be beneficial to Jesse. But I'd like to leave at least with some sort of feedback and direction. I don't want to leave him hanging and him leave here today and go, I didn't get anywhere. So
Yeah.
whether it's a yay or a nay, or come back with this or that, I think it would be beneficial.
I mean, I am hesitant personally to give a yay without it being on the agenda. I don't think that's fair to the public. I mean, I don't know that that's even legal. I don't know.
Okay.
Proposed or altered.
Do you have so what I would like to ask is if you have any feedback for him, if he decides to move forward with this and propose it at the next agenda.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and maybe it's, I realize it's on our property, but if it expedites what you're trying to do, I don't know if just straight to, when the village council meets, if that's something that,
So ultimately,
ultimately we give recommendations.
right,
Yeah.
the village is really going to want to see your recommendation, as they always do. A lot of times, timing wise, Parks Commission meetings and council meetings and the speed at which Jasmine moves doesn't always coincide. But they want your recommendation They want your
You're-
recommendation.
My fault, largely.
For, they want your recommendation, they realize the value of this commission, and they would really like to hear from you. I guarantee you, if I took this, if I went out to an RFQ and someone submitted a proposal, the first question they're gonna ask is, what did Parks and Rec Commission say? Because it's always that question. So, again, feedback for Jesse would be beneficial. You know, if it's something that arises sooner rather than later, we could request a special meeting. If not, it would go on the next agenda. But again, at a minimum, I think some feedback and direction would be helpful.
Well, Jesse, I personally like the idea of being able, of you developing your property for, you know, kids. I mean, I don't know if you're talking about camping. I know that there's been some, like,
We got away from camping.
okay. I didn't know if that was you. I know that there
It
was some
was
camping that came
about a
up.
year ago, but now we're just doing the day activities.
I honestly, at this point, don't feel like, I just wrapping my head around the whole idea.
Is there something that we can compare this to? Some other situation that someone's using village property to?
The carriage rides down the
Okay,
main, you know.
so that'd be a similar situation?
It is and it isn't. More of the isn't. So we'll just kind of generally explain it. Who does the Parks Department specifically have an agreement with a private company who's utilizing Village of Ruidoso property and bringing a private enterprise? You got the Ruidoso Winter Park. You have the concession at Grindstone Lake, the concession at Alto Lake. Do we have any others that are? But they utilize Village of Ruidoso property. They're making money. We share in the revenue. They all have to carry us as additionally insured.
Right, I was gonna ask about that.
You know, they're all impacting our properties, both positively and some negatively with maintenance. But in general, yes, there are.
Do we go out for bids on those?
Yes,
We-
yes,
we're
we do.
required to?
And so generally, depending on the anticipated amount of revenue that we're gonna bring in, is what's gonna guide what level of procurement we go out for. And so if it was a pretty substantial, if it was over $10,000 that we expected, we would go on a more formal process, much like a request for proposals.
Right.
And if it's $10,000 and under, which what I expect this would be, a request for quotes. And a request for quotes is a little less formal.
Right.
So that's what I would suspect our purchasing department would proceed with and give us direction to proceed with. Of course, everything would run through the purchasing department. They review the scope of work. Based on our conversation, I would put together a scope of work. The purchasing department would review it. If it was satisfactory to their conditions, they would enter that onto a template, and then we would
Yeah.
publish it usually from a week to 2 weeks, depending on what their recommendation would be.
So they're gonna require all that anyway, I know. So wouldn't it be better to have all of that done beforehand, before even trying to go on agenda for?
Oh, absolutely. So typically, when it would get to the governing body, is we would already have gone through the RFQ, the receiving of quotes, the evaluation of all the quotes, and then a recommendation of award. And then we would submit that recommendation of award to the governing body, and they would have the ultimate say-so on whether to proceed with it or not.
So if any red flags are along the way in any of these processes, if something is weird that we haven't thought of? Isn't a red flag gonna go up anyway? Or not?
You would hope so. But I think you all have brought a lot of valid concerns today. And if Jesse could use that to form a proposal, if we
Yeah, I
went
don't
out
think
for
Jesse, like,
proposals.
You know, I think part of the proposal is the relinquishing of 25 parking spaces at the lake. I mean, is that what we kind of said was, and I hate to go back to just dollars and cents, but I mean, so your projected revenue of passing on 10% would have to offset really that loss for the.
I'm not sure, maybe Rodney can help me out here. I'm not sure that the 25 potential parking spots would necessarily negatively impact the lake, because I would never get those people until the lake was full. Until you had your 300 car limit, nobody's gonna.
Okay, I don't understand this then, I don't think. So,
Yeah, so the capacity that we've set of the 300 vehicles, his would be on top of that. So then we would be exceeding that 300 capacity that
Kind of
we
an
have.
overflow mark.
Yeah.
Which was why I brought that up, because I wasn't sure how we would do that either.
no, well, I guess the reason I bring it up is because we earlier said that we felt like that was a manageable number of people at the lake. And that's what, we were not pursuing additional parking because 300 is what we want it to be. And if we are going to, so we're proposing somewhere between 25 and additional, I mean, we said it was vehicles at some point. I mean, it's, I don't know how many people we're talking about, but do you understand what I'm saying here now? Like,
I understand what you're saying. This also, not this model, but in my total business plan that was approved by Planning and Zoning and Village Council was that I could also charge for lake parking. I could have charge parking at my facility. So this is a way to streamline that activity from.
I see. So wait, so you would be providing additional parking to the village? Is that what you're saying, or you would just?
I would be providing additional parking for people who need additional parking anywhere. The Midtown district's full, there's people that, parked all the way over in, behind the Ruidoso Hotel last year and walked all the way to Grindstone. They're predicting that Memorial Weekend's gonna be the biggest travel weekend in American history. There's a lot of logistics that Ruidoso's gonna have to absorb one way or another, and I'm hoping that this is a way that could provide more access to Grindstone without limiting, I mean, I understand the limiting parking and trying to limit the total number of people, but this is a way that people that didn't know about the reservation process and I hope I can just do tractor rides. There might be people that are gonna pay just to do the tractor ride that don't necessarily want to get off. If you take a 20-minute tractor ride with your kids or grandkids and get to see a beautiful lake and Sierra Blanca in the background, that alone is going to be a draw. So I think that's an option also, but I also expect there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to park and pay so that they can walk the lake. There's going to be people that would like to walk to a certain elevation and already be at the lake and be away from vehicle traffic.
Are you gonna be using the tractors to take people that are parking over at Wingfield and?
No, ma'am, not until we know more about what the permitting process for city streets is.
Okay,
So that's in a different situation altogether.
Yeah, because that would be, like you said, if that was like the overflow for the Midtown district for everything, you would have to be shuttling those people somehow.
It does concern me too that it seems like we lose one of our methods for monitoring the number of people at the lake. I don't know how we monitor. I don't know if the walk-ins, like you've already mentioned, I don't know exactly.
So I would like to add a couple things that I have thought of regarding, and, you know, I'm not trying to sway you all one way or the other. I'm not, and I want to say that I'm just trying to provide maybe some clarity for both sides. So the master plan does recommend shuttling, but mainly revolving around the Whibbit. So because the inflatable water park can have a concentrated number of people, that type of use would not contribute to the lake crowd around the shore. So that is a recommendation of the master plan to try to develop some sort of shuttling system. This could be considered, you know, a shuttling system. That's the way I look at it. That's how potentially it could affect the one route through the disc golf course up to the Grindstone parking lot. The other route that he's proposing, which is to the south side of the lake, and that is an area that, you know, I'm not certain that how it's addressed in the master plan, but they did recommend additional parking for what it's called is the Fisherman's Trail on the south side. And it does request additional parking to accommodate additional capacity on that side. Because currently, there's very limited parking on that side, and there's very limited activity on that side.
There's no parking, the only thing you have horse trailer parking, right?
There's some parking people, he knows, people
Yeah.
park there in
They
the
basically
disc
just
golf
park in the
parking
disc
lot.
golf course parking lot and then hike from there, which obviously the expansion of a parking area that would suit both the needs of accessibility to the back or the south side of the lake and allow us to have more parking for the course. I mean, obviously that's something that I think everyone wants, and if there's a permanent bathroom in play for that type of facility, that would be great also. I'm okay with, I guess really my biggest concerns is if they are, or if Jesse is going to use part of the disc golf course for transporting people through the course, obviously safety of players and safety of guests passing through the course. I would want to propose a redraft of an alternate route through the course to avoid that. I would also want to know the financial responsibility of altering or redesigning the disc golf course and the materials, who would cover all of those. Who would cover all of that? Like, let's change the route through there. We're gonna have to free up at least 100 feet of space between any of the people traveling through and where the tee pads or baskets or whatever, who's gonna be responsible for the redesign, the cost of those, and then obviously, I would like to see an alternate route rather than right through the center of the land. But Jesse, like you mentioned earlier, is using that road
That was,
there up on the sign. I think that a few of those holes could be moved, but who would be responsible for that redesign and the cost of all of that? So I think those are really my main concerns there, at least when it comes to the disc golf course. Not saying that I would be opposed to it. I think the service that you're trying to offer is probably something that we are going to need to address again in the future. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
and then you made a suggestion about 100 feet clearance, you need 100 feet?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's be real. We're talking about golf here, and people shank shots all the time. And I would really hate for you to have a buggy full of people rolling through there, and one of the disc golf players throws a high-speed driver right into a buggy full of people where they just can't get away. So if we create a safe space and/or safe barrier zone, maybe we'll put some signs up, beware of flying discs. I mean, even if someone yells "4," you're probably not going to hear it with the tractor running or anything like that.
Do you have the same barriers on the easement that's between my property and the, like where the lake trail, where they're proposed the lake fishing? There's a road that goes through there.
So where the trail is right now.
Well, all along here, like, there's a basket right here.
Right.
And
So
there's a basket
there's
right
a
here.
there's a tee pad here now. There's a tee pad here, and it does shoot over the road.
Right.
Right, and obviously we yield to
the
traffic.
vehicles.
Yeah, we totally yield to the traffic that's playing there. And then, of course, there is a basket right here that's played right next to the road.
Right.
And then, of course,
And then you
Basket
deplay,
here,
you got
T-pad
baskets
here.
there, and then you got baskets all along the road up
Right,
there.
and I mean, that's the same thing, so obviously we yield to the traffic there. That traffic's probably moving a little bit quicker than what your tractor's gonna be able to scoot at.
And I think the open air
It's like
exposure to
pedestrian.
those discs is probably what you're talking about. I
And
mean,
that's
if you
more-
hit
yeah,
a
that's
car,
more
it's
what
gonna
I'm
ding it, but
concerned
it's
about.
gonna,
Yeah,
if
it's
it
like-
hits somebody, it's.
Dude, and that, I would feel terrible,
one of
like I said, someone throws a drive too far or shanks a shot, and then there's, someone's just sitting there without it
Concepts
coming
and the
through.
concerns that I've had in general is to make it more enclosed so that kids aren't dropping things off of it,
Yeah,
and that it's shaded and it's weather resistant, that kind of stuff. Basically, it's gonna be a beefed up covered wagon
right.
that you can see out of, have a canvas top, but be fairly weather resistant. And if that helps with any of the concerns about safety from a stray frisbee.
Well, and that's what I was trying to think of, like redesign, ultimately, if you were using this road and this road to come through, how do we throw away from the road always? So that way, if you're, you know what I mean, or if you're throwing back towards the trail that you are using, do we have enough distance to keep, like I said, I'm just using 100 feet. I would go look what the actual Pro Disc Golf Association recommends between a usable pathway and, throwing distance. I mean, I know.
I think that's a very good point that you bring up, and I think it would be best to refer to that regarding the distance, because I know our goal is to have a professional level tournaments, and we need to be able to comply with that. So, and I think it's a better number to refer to rather than Everett said.
Yeah, no, and I don't want it to be.
Right, so, but I think referring to that number is a better option, or the best option.
So,
And I think we'll probably get more activity along the south road. I think you're gonna, at my location, you have more people who want to access the south side of the lake.
yeah, fishing wise and everything
Yeah,
like that
fishing
too.
wise, and then the families that,
And then, of course, where would you turn around up there
yeah.
at that top area?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. Would you all be open to one, like the south
Can we approve?
route
one
instead of versus the other?
I don't see a problem. I mean, the only thing would be, Jesse, is this at all an option to go from here, come up the riding stable road and across here where that new parking area is supposed to be, or come behind the houses?
Well, I evaluated that. There's a couple reasons. A, this is a downhill run, and they're still dumping material in this parking lot.
Right.
I don't know when they're gonna get that done. And this is a narrower course, narrower road than it appears, and with, tractor activity and two-way traffic, this is wide enough and at a flat angle, it's level, that I think that's the safest route.
Okay. So I only have one hole that goes from here to right along that road, that the road is actually part of the fairway.
Part of the fairway.
It is, yeah. So I didn't design that part of the course there, but this road is used as part of the fairway for hole number 8 on the front 9 of the disc golf course. So, I mean, Rodney, is that something that, I mean, I know that we literally just bought brand new tee signs, we just put the new baskets in, we just put the new concrete tee pads. Is there room for alteration at all on the front 9 as far as going back and doing that?
We did make significant changes and upgraded all that. That's something I would be more open to the Dam 9, or what I call the Dam 9, I don't know what you call it, than because of
His
Either way
proposed,
goes
yeah,
through
either way, his proposed route goes right through the front 9, right there. So we would have, obviously, we're yielding to traffic here because it's on the road. We have to yield to traffic on that road regardless. But if it's the same on this situation, on a busy weekend, we're having a tournament and he's running, I'm not saying that that's going to be a problem, but that could potentially be a problematic area.
Well, the thing that I really don't want to incur that expense, I would have to order not only the signs for the different holes that were affected, but even the main sign.
Mhm.
And
Well, we can use the one behind the house then.
I mean, I think that, it well, and like
And
you,
that needs to be, I mean, I have my own equipment that, I was hoping for a rain, because that road with all all the dump truck traffic that's been on it needs to be maintained.
right.
So, I mean, that is a viable option. It's one that
Going
I've
up.
looked at.
That road right there.
Yeah, if
there's
you would tuck it right here.
You-
I mean, we're used to playing or yielding
this
to
one.
traffic on that anyway. We only throw, oh yeah, sorry.
Use this one,
even
because this is
better.
a property line.
So there's a T-pad right
You go by the
here.
equestrian parking lot and then come through here.
There's a T-pad right there and right here, and that plays up this hillside. And then from this hillside, we play down to this corner, and then we cross the street right here, and then we play right next to that road.
And the turn, and
So if Jesse was to come here, come up the
Yeah.
road, and then exactly like he said, tuck back right behind there, then that takes all of this potential
well, and
dangerous
this is
area
all
out of
current
play.
use road, right?
That's all
Yes.
current
Yeah.
use, yeah.
So
So the only thing you would have to alter is the road right,
There's a road
There.
there.
there's a.
okay.
There's a road that goes from that park.
But we don't know when all that dumping and stuff is gonna stop there either.
And then turn around up here.
Yeah, there's a turnaround. Where this road splits, right where your finger is, there's a pretty wide spot. There's a wide spot there,
You
and then
can
there's
get
a
around.
wide spot right here
Okay.
that looks, and this was one of the things.
This is property lines? We're
These are
looking at
property lines, yeah.
What
This
is
is-
this track?
It's something that this is all village lands, and I don't know why this is divided right
Okay,
here.
all right. That's okay, I don't need.
But this is all yours right here. That's not-
Yeah, well, my line's more along right here. I don't know why this didn't show up. I think it's just because I looked for village lands. This is Forest Service. So this is city, this is village all through here, and then this turns into Forest Service right here. This is the Forest Service boundary.
So that's why you can't.
So. Ronnie, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, so, I keep going back to the capacity issue, only because I deal with a lot of the capacity issue when it comes to our reservation system. And my thing is so I just don't understand how we have this capacity in place, and then we're not gonna abide by it.
Right.
And then, if that's the case, because that's how we're stopping people from coming after we've met the 300 car capacity. So what would stop just anyone from getting their truck and shuttling friends and family and just dropping them off?
Well,
Like, I'm not staying, I'm just dropping them off, and then, so I just don't know how we would monitor the capacity after we surpass the 300 vehicles.
well, the 300 vehicles are like you're saying, are no longer the cap. You lose some control over,
But we don't know how many people are in each vehicle anyway, do we?
but we haven't established, I mean, that's the question I had earlier. We had this 300 vehicle cap was established as I mean, you guys said that's what works. That's what seemed to, and that's why when we said when we started this conversation earlier about how are we going to account for that, there was a projection of cars. Approximately 25 vehicles came up at some point. And that's why I thought we were reducing, that's why I brought up the economics of it, the loss of revenue, that we were reducing by 25 what we were going to allow to maintain that cap. That's why I brought that up earlier. And so I don't know. I mean, to me, that's an issue. You guys, I think that I think without a doubt, we have to do some kind of quoting process. I mean, we have to go through, I don't think we can just approve, I think we can approve
I mean, we're just making a
that we
recommendation.
move forward with a quote for providing transport or tractor rides to the lake. I'm not really sure where that goes, and I'm not really sure how you write up that, because I mean, I don't think, Rodney, can you just enter into like an agreement where he's gonna give you 10% and there's no, what paperwork are we
process.
following? What, like, how does that work?
You could, but you're potentially gonna get some pushback.
And I hesitate to put forth a recommendation that
It's
it's
a-
great. That's why I would say I might push for a recommendation that we generate a quote, something, or.
Right. That's what I would
Request for
recommend as
quotes.
well. Just because you're gonna eliminate that issue of someone, claiming that they didn't have a equitable opportunity to provide a similar service. So-
Another, I mean, this, just, and Jesse, like, don't get me wrong, this is just highly unusual to have also someone come in and into one of our meetings with a plan and for us to have back and forth. I mean, I don't know, it seems like there's Open Meetings Act issues that we're getting to. That's why I said, I think without putting it on an agenda, we're also potentially putting ourselves into a position where.
Again, and I understand that. I think the feedback
I think the
is
fact that it-
beneficial, and again, even if we have to schedule a special meeting or push it to the June meeting.
And I would be glad to do that. I would be glad to schedule a special meeting if we went with a quote, because I know you're on a time, you were trying to
Yeah,
work.
you
I know,
were-
if you're trying to work for next week, I just don't see like,
I've been at this a year and a half.
okay. The speed of government, the speed of a lot of public entities, that's both good and bad things.
I have one other question.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Would you be, so I'm just trying to think, be devil's advocate, trying to figure out, what questions on either side. Typically, our Monday through Thursday is busy, and that's the reason why we don't have reservations.
Yeah.
Would
It's
you
not
be
busy.
open even to the concept of a Monday through Thursday?
I think I would be much. So
Yeah, I'm
here's-
just thinking
here's a-
of
here's a
ideas.
couple- Here's a couple of issues that I worry about. Here's a couple of issues that I worry about. I worry a little bit about capacity of that lake. I worry about it getting overrun. I don't think that what you're proposing is probably going to be a tipping point. But I do see what you're proposing as potentially opening up other things happening at the lake. A loss of like our ability to control the number of people that end up at that lake. I think already there's been issues with that. I mean, we went into last year without a reservation system. We came out of last year with a reservation system because it just is not, things that we think we are going to happen don't happen the way we think they're going to happen. And I think, it's been in some ways a blessing and a curse for us because, the lake has generated a lot of revenue. It's also pushed away some locals. The revenue has pushed away some local people who love that lake.
I grew up on that lake. I live a quarter mile from that lake. I know.
And I don't want to, I want to be really cautious in how we proceed to develop that lake. I think we have a master plan, we're moving forward with like steps in that master plan. And I think we have to be careful in just leaving that master plan. And, Rodney said there's apparently, and I'm not an expert with the master plan, I just study it. But Rodney said that there's talks of having a shuttle system, and what that, in that master plan.
Yeah, what does that, yeah. What does that look like?
So that's some of my hesitancy. I think proposing like a Monday through Thursday reduces some of that, it helps us maintain some control over like what is going to be happening with that. I think actually making a request for quote and having that request for quote being something that's annual also allows us. And I hate the position it would potentially put people who invest in shuttle or who invest in, the concessions, who invest in boats, up there. They're on an annual they take some risk in putting together their quote and then putting together their business based on the idea that it's gonna be available the next year. I mean, what happens if it doesn't? But I think I would feel more comfortable if we were in that, where if we did a request for quote, if we had a special meeting based on, if we identified some clear limit, like clearly what's gonna happen in that request for quote, so not only like you and Rodney or know what's been discussed, but the public knows exactly what's happening. Where it identifies 10% or whatever. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at this point.
Well, that's how it's got to be done anyway, so.
So it's a moot point anyways?
Well, no, I mean, that's what we have to do, and then we have to figure out if we have to have a special meeting, then when's the next I mean, it's all a matter of timing anyway. We can't decide, I mean, I know that summer's here quick, but we can't, it can't happen that fast.
I mean, can we make a recommendation that, Rodney, you proceed with development of
It doesn't, yeah, I mean, I can proceed with putting together the scope of work based on our conversation, with all of the stipulations.
percentages identified
Yes. And I mentioned we do have some existing contracts.
I mean, what are we
And
gonna
so-
do if this is the most, the thing that ends up in highest demand, people just love this, and you end up with 150 cars down there in your parking lot, and you shuttle 150 rides a day, and you have to buy 4 tractors. I mean, what are we gonna do?
I think people are gonna love it.
I mean,
I'd sure do it.
I don't know, but what are we gonna, I mean, we don't wanna go back and say, oops, we gotta, I just,
I'm not kidding, that's what I was just thinking.
what?
We could potentially open up the campground again.
Eliminate the
If we
parking
don't
that's
have
being
to use
used at the
parking.
campground and use Jesse's shuttle service for the.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, so it opens up all kinds of opportunities potentially, but it also creates you've got, then there is a transfer of parking revenue. So, I mean, there's just
Bunch of details. Something just occurred to me, is there any other private land
adjacent. There is.
that this is gonna come up from somebody else, and they'll say, well, I wanna
I don't
have,
think anyone that's.
Well,
And that was part of my point earlier when we said, who
The
else can
stables
use
is really
it?
about
Is
it.
there-
They don't want it, they're busy with their deal.
The stables is really about it, but again, if we go through the process of an RFQ, it will go through another department, they'll advertise it. The more things the more interest there is, typically the longer we publish it before we close it.
right,
Just so there's ample opportunity for the word to get out and for people to put together proposals.
all the way around, the stables would be the only other,
Really, with the type of access that we're talking, yes. Now, if you go beyond Resort Drive and connect it to Midtown, I mean, there's lots of businesses, but in that immediate area, the village owns everything on both sides of the road,
okay, so,
other than residential.
Yeah, there's no other commercially
Right.
zoned properties in that area.
are there any residential
Well,
properties?
Sunrise Court, there's
There's not,
going to be adjacent properties, but those are not conducive to. this
Right.
area, But they might want to zip line into the lake.
Well, yeah, somebody will figure out something.
hey, put together another RFQ for that.
But, I mean, one thing opens and, you've got
Yes.
to,
There's
like
not,
that darn golf tournament this last weekend. Uh-oh, we don't have enough security here all of a sudden. Just as an example of they didn't plan it,
Right.
But we've got to be thinking of all of those little details.
I really don't see any others that have the immediate, adjacent property. There's not
Okay.
anything, but you never know. there's things further out.
Well, I think it sounds great, but then I got scared about some frisbees knocking my head off.
Right.
Shoot.
But there's ways to fix that.
And I think the most important thing is addressing it in the plan. If that's something we're gonna approve, it needs to be addressed, even consider. It has to be
At least consider,
addressed.
yeah, proper signage or something, you know?
Yeah, and what routing is gonna be used.
Yeah, and
I
with
think
the,
that's something that you'd probably have to work with Rodney directly on in helping develop the quote. I mean, I don't know how that works if,
Oh, I just tell them what percentage we want on this quote.
no, well, the routing,
Oh,
the
sorry.
routing, not the rating.
but we wouldn't be making the reservations.
No, ma'am. The way I understand it is, if anything, the villages, maybe we have a capacity with him and maybe, I mean, everything's gonna be on them.
I think it'd be real cool. I'd much rather do that than walk.
Well, I think.
And we're not really encouraging walking traffic anyways, just because we want, right now, we prefer on-site parking.
Right.
We went through the headaches of the off-site.
How are we handling walking? Like, I think that's been explained to me, but I don't think I know.
We talked about.
So as a visitor, we're not encouraging off-site parking and walking in.
Right.
No
but
way.
I mean, so
We're gonna
what do we
patrol
do?
the
Like,
roads.
I'm assuming if someone tries to walk up Wiggins, that's what I want to know. If someone tries to walk up Wiggins.
Where did you park?
What do we do?
Where did your parking, where did you originate?
So we
your-
ask them, where did
No,
you,
I'm not gonna ask them. I'm gonna hunt them down.
and
And
tell them that
you
they have to
answer-
park in the parking lot.
If they parked on the side of the road, we're gonna, number one, we're gonna warn them to move. If they don't move, we're gonna get a cop there to cite them. So if they parked on
legally, Are we letting them walk in?
if they park legally from Midtown,
Legally. If they
In
park legally,
Midtown?
they can walk
the
in.
nearest parking in Midtown, or out of a residence, they would be allowed to walk in.
Really?
Didn't we talk about shuttles?
Folks who live in the area
Yeah.
do walk there.
And that's fine, but you just
Okay.
cannot park anywhere in neighborhoods, right-of-ways,
Okay.
adjacent lots, none of it's allowed.
We need to make a motion?
Again, you could give me some direction to move forward, and that would be adequate.
Somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable making it, if someone else will.
Because you're not,
I have just so
Well-
much invested interest in my little disc golf course out there, so. I'd rather be on someone else's,
Well, before we go to a motion, before you guys go to a motion, there's other things that I'm kind of curious about. Is the possibility of just having access and not letting people off. And I could sell tractor rides to the south side of the dam temporarily until we know whether or not that's something we want to do. Or, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of ways we can work together and see if it is something. I may be too busy where it might be one of those, like, and the tractor rides are not worth it. Or maybe in certain times of the year, or certain times of the day, or set up a set of rides where I'm only offering tractor rides from 8 AM to 10 AM. And then I'm gonna do my other stuff that keeps me busy. And then I'll do tractor rides from 3 to 5.
I think,
And is it brainstorming for what you guys see that?
I think you bring up a lot of good points. I think that we can't really discuss that much right now without it being in the public meeting. I don't think we can do that.
so should,
Without it being an agenda item,
so let's make it an agenda item?
you know?
So we can put it on the next agenda, again, if.
I mean, I'm
at
willing
your
to have a special meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
And
And that's fine.
but I don't think we can have any kind of,
what I'll do is, I can add it to, an agenda. I can propose a special meeting with you guys, see when you're available. What I can do in the meantime is work with Jesse just with a few different options, and then, I think kind of have a general idea of potentially what y'all would be open to. So let us work with Jesse to put together some proposals, and y'all will have some options.
Okay,
I feel
yeah,
great
so
about that.
then I guess today,
You just heard him out and you gave him some feedback.
and we're going
Yes.
we recommend that it go into an agenda, and
Yes.
we're gonna have a special meeting. We need to look at
Correct.
dates and when people can.
Yeah,
Okay. If there's no further discussion, if y'all will allow, I'll move into some recreation updates.
okay.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse, for your
Thank you.
time and your
Thank you.
efforts in this.
You guys vote on all this afterwards? You got a bunch of stuff to vote on, or did you need to make a motion right
No,
now?
they're not gonna make a motion, but we'll work together to come up with some proposal. We'll schedule a special meeting,
Yep.
Thank you.
so it doesn't have to wait a month.
You'll be back.
So I kind of alluded to this, mentioned it a little bit earlier. So this weekend, we'll be starting the swimming pool and the Whibbit operations at Grindstone and at the public pool. Along with the Grindstone, the Whibbit operations, we'll be starting our charging for the summer for parking. And so we have developed a fee structure that's different from the past as far as parking goes. And it was submitted to council and it was approved. It's $10 individual parking pass per day. There is a $10 season parking pass option for Ruidoso residents. Those residents will not have to make a reservation. They'll just simply have to drive up to the entrance, display their pass, and we will allow them to enter. There is a $20 Lincoln County resident pass. There is a $30 New Mexico resident pass.
And this is actually in y'all's packet. I see Everett Grindstone.
Yeah, it was,
There's an SOP at the very end.
The
Is
very
this-
back. I'm sorry, Rodney, I didn't.
No, that's fine. Save me some time.
Should be
Yeah.
like the last page in your, yes, ma'am, standard operating procedure.
And then there's also a no fee for veterans and active military. The fees for the Whibbit and the seasonal passes for the pool and the Whibbit did not change. Our swim lessons at the public pool are open and they're filling up very quickly. A majority of them are already full. We have a pretty substantial list of events already scheduled for the year in the department. We started the farmers market. Was this our third weekend or was it the second weekend?
It was the third.
It was the third weekend of the farmers market in Wingfield Park. That will be every Saturday through October. We're scheduling some summer camps through the summer. We have a volleyball camp for youth currently finalized with the schedule of June 3rd and 4th. We have a archery shoot series. We have the first one this past weekend. We have a following, or a second and a third scheduled for June 12th and July 24th. We have an upcoming glow-in-the-dark disc golf tournament on May the 26th. And we have a lot of temporary positions open for pool and water park operations. Y'all have any questions regarding any of those items?
how are we doing for lifeguards?
So our goal is, our initial goal each year is to have 20 lifeguards hired. We have, I believe, 14. And so we're looking for a few more. I think we're experiencing probably what a lot of the community is with filling positions. But our issue, I believe, is a little more complicated, and with kids still being in school, with baseball and softball and summer activities. One thing that I would like to mention is, our goal is to always be flexible with students, whether they're high school or college age. But if you all know someone who's interested, even if they can only work weekends or weeknights, we're really flexible and willing to work with people. Students. Let's see. And we have, I believe, 6 of the 12 positions for cashiers. And so we're looking for 6 more cashiers and basically 6 more guards.
At the, where?
We share the staff between the water park and the pool.
So quick question. So I remember when we made the recommendations about the season passes, it looks like now we have the Village of Ruidoso locals will pay $10 per vehicle rather than that pass being free to Village of Ruidoso residents.
So the governing body didn't want to do away with free, but it's not, it's a $10 season pass. It's
Right.
good for the entire summer season.
It's just different than what we.
Yes, it is different than your recommendation.
And am I reading this right, that we're going to charge at Alto?
And yes, ma'am, we're charging at
Yay.
Alto.
Okay.
And really the support behind that, or the supporting, is we had to staff that every weekend last summer, and we did that for no charge. And we have 3
Yeah.
personnel that are there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
I'm very happy
It's-
with that.
We charge Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Uh-huh. But
And
still,
it's a safety issue, and because the traffic does get backed up, and it was overwhelmed at times, so it was necessary to implement that.
I'm glad to see that.
Good catch. Are there any other questions regarding not only recreation or a project I may have missed?
The bathroom project?
Okay, so we have 2 bathroom projects going on currently. One is a replacement of the Two Rivers Park restroom, and one is a brand-new restroom in what we call the Midtown Commons, which is above the barbecue restaurant. I forgot what it is. Used to be the Italian.
Yeah.
Donnie's. And so both projects are on schedule. It's early on in the project. They've torn down the Two Rivers restroom. If you all notice, we retained the pavilion. They're working on the site prep for the concrete work. Both bathrooms are really a mirror image of each other. They're both the same type of construction, same color, same roof. So what they're doing is they're moving from one site to the next. So as they perform the concrete prep work at Two Rivers, then they'll move to the other one, perform the concrete prep work, then they'll go back to Two Rivers, pour the concrete, so on and so forth through the project. They'll be skipping back and forth, performing the same work at the once they complete the first one, they'll move to the second one. And I believe the anticipated completion date is like around early August. Any other projects?
We'll be moving into the new radio station building.
Oh, I saw that.
That's very
The
exciting.
sign's on.
Yeah.
Looks cool.
Yeah.
So what about the Wingfield House?
So the Wingfield House is not necessarily in our department, but I'd love to update you on that. So the village is currently in the design stage for the development of the Wingfield House. Ultimately, it'll be like a miniature welcoming center with a museum. And we're trying to have some historical information about the community in that building.
Which department is the Wingfield House under?
It probably will be under us, but at this point, I'm not sure what, the village is hiring a new tourism and convention center manager. Maybe that would be a good fit for them,
I agree.
but I'm not certain at this time.
Okay. Because that's very exciting.
It is exciting. It'll be a neat
Yeah.
property once it's completed. And they're gonna do some renovation to that to more in line with
Back how it was?
yes, to put
Yeah.
it back how it was. Because there was the back part of the building were some later additions, so they'll
Right.
remove all of that and put it more to the homestead.
It's really neat.
And yes, we are in charge of the radio station and they'll be moving from the current location, which is near the post office, to the radio station next week. And then it'll be off air for a few days.
Actually, he said they should be able to stay on air, we just won't have our live program.
We won't have our live programming.
So radio station's under Parks and Rec?
Yes, ma'am. Interesting. We do a little bit of everything and some.
Convention center, community center.
Any other questions? Trevor's thinking.
Oh, I was,
I saw smoke coming out of his ears.
I was curious if we have identified, well, there's two things, I guess. One, identified is 20 a minimum number of lifeguards that you can run both facilities with?
No,
I'm just curious,
a
like how
minimum
close
would be,
we are to.
a minimum would be 10.
Okay,
You could run it with 10. So essentially at the
so
pool,
we're ready to open
Oh,
both
yeah.
facilities with the number of.
at the
personnel.
pool, you need 3 on deck and 1 on a rotation. You could even run it with fewer than that. You're just gonna have to close portions of the pool if you get lower than 4.
Okay,
But
And-
they are students and
There was this one kid there
they're
today.
playing sports.
yeah.
So the more we have, the more flexible we can be with their schedule.
I wanted to figure out if we were in jeopardy of like having to close, but we could close off sections of them too.
Yes, we could, some things that we would evaluate if we were that low is we would lower the capacity of the pool.
Okay,
Or on short stints, you could even close the slide. And we're looking at, not seriously at this time. Potentially, you could close on Mondays and Tuesdays. And so you'll have your staff for longer. But to have 4 to cover 7 days a week would not be possible.
I guess my other question is about something that we started talking about back in February about lake level. Lake levels haven't returned to what they were last year. How close are we to we're still gonna be able to offer all services, and are we gonna be able to, I know projections for whether or not you have enough water to fill it is like not something you can do, but I thought we were gonna be able to fill it, and we're not full. Are we even close to the point where we wouldn't be able to run the Whibbit?
No. When you visit the lake, you'll notice that we've repositioned it.
Okay,
And the reason we repositioned it is because we worked with Eric Boyda on his best estimations, calculations
For the
on
summer.
what the water level would do through the summer.
okay.
And so we positioned it in a location that we felt that we would be able to operate through the entire summer and at least until we got to monsoons. And as far as lake levels go, I'm pretty optimistic and want it to fill up every year.
Yeah.
But when you have a winter the way that we had, and we haven't had a ample spring rings in I don't know how long. So it's
So we position it in a place where we think we can maintain
Yes.
minimum depth necessary for operation.
yes. And we also scaled back the size. Combination of COVID and the water levels. But it's still gonna be fun. We have some new features.
I'm worried about blowing my knee out running around that thing.
Your kids are old enough to get on there without you.
I like doing it. You said it was fun. You said it was fun. It is fun, but it's dangerous for an old man like me. Yeah, I mean, I'm far enough out of knee surgery now that I think I'm okay, but I don't know.
We added 2 new features that should be pretty exciting.
What are the features?
One's what they call an iceberg. It's
Is it-
just, it looks like an iceberg with some climbing rocks, and then once you get up there, it's higher than it looks, and then you can jump
Oh,
off.
I've been on the iceberg of Santa Rosa, and I've
Yes.
jumped off, and it's scary.
It is.
And it's hard to climb, too.
Yeah, it is. It's challenging. And then we have another, I believe they call it the rock. Looks like a rock wall. It's got some climbing features, not as challenging as the iceberg, but then once you get to the top, it's got 3 different slide options to get down, so you don't have to jump off.
That's why I ask about those minimum depths, because a big guy like me, when I jump off the iceberg, it's pretty deep. There you
Get
go.
some,
What, are y'all talking about that thing?
the widget, yeah.
Oh,
Are they in place now?
Yes.
God, I wouldn't get on that for any, now I'd ride a little tractor around.
Is that it, y'all?
So I have anything else?
I don't have anything.
I have a
Thank you.
motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Oh, I need a motion to
Oh,
adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Appreciate your all's time. Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much. Where's Jeffrey? Is he gone for the week?
We're still live,
Be
so,
back early in the morning.
just so you guys know, don't
Audio.
start cursing and doing things that are objectionable. Hey, how much did they ask you for that house next door to you? Is it really? I figured it would be pretty fast. How many square? Yeah. I like the square one that you can work with. I don't like the regular one. Like your other neighbor, he's had it's beautiful. Is he? I was wondering about that.
Is this Jeff?
Well, I saw their little climbing tree. They're lighting little candles on the tree. That's pretty nice. Pretty slick. Yeah. Well, we had a lot of comments.
Yeah,
Who's,
the equestrian group would like a chance for public comment.
in regards to the,
Townsend thing.
yeah,
It would definitely cause
I'm definitely out of town. Definitely out of town. I know you haven't scheduled it yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm out of town.
So do these comments get saved? How does that work?
I would like to see what they are, if you,
I gotta get my little pumpkin on gas, because I really don't have to have that in my old trucks.
It's not being recorded, so. I know we would love it so that you can see them, because they were not being recorded, so they won't be saved.
Yeah, if you want to look at them, I don't know, I guess I could take a picture of them.
you already screenshot it, probably. Where's your tech guy?
I'm the, we are the tech guys. I'll just take a picture of it.
I can take some screenshots of it. Is this where it started?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna
Thank you,
screenshot it.
perfect.
If this is,
Yeah, if someone's logged in, we can just email.
we cannot hear Mr. Townsend, who knows Mr. Townsend?
Yeah, I guess I should have sat there when Jeff left. I didn't even realize he was gonna be gone.
Perhaps she was busy. So let me see. Is there someone with an email account on this?
Just Jeff, probably.
Make a document.
Absolutely.
Email this.
I was just gonna take pictures with my phone, so you're way ahead of me.
I'll email this to you guys too. It'll take a minute if you don't.
No, I'm good.